Good afternoon and welcome to the Demolition Daily LiveStream. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. A happy Star Wars Day, and may the 4th be with you. It's a cliche, I know, but somebody had to do it. Hello in particular to all those joining us over on Instagram for the first time. We've got an audience of about 113,000 people on that platform now. It's our biggest single audience. It also makes us the biggest demolition-related feed on the whole of Instagram as well. So I'm very pleased that some of you guys can join us from over there. We have been posting our live streams over there once they've ended, but we've actually got a few on board now watching live, which is great to see. You might find me a bit more of a loss for words today, even more than usual. I had a whole heap of notes and a partial script leading into the introduction of today's guest, but today's guest let me know about 10 minutes ago that they can't now make it. So I've got an absolutely brilliant script and a great set of insightful notes and nobody to share it with. So I'm going to hold that in reserve in the hope that we can get them on again at some point in the future. So I'm just going to have to freewheel it today. Hold that script in reserve and I'll just wing it for today. As a result of that, if you have got any comments or questions or anything else, we'd love to hear them. Just hit them up in the comments. We'd love to hear from you just to keep it moving, basically. Over the weekend, I had cause to look back. I wasn't being vain. I was actually looking for something. I looked back at an article that I wrote 7 weeks ago today. At the time, I was sat in a hotel room in Las Vegas, just about ready to go to the penultimate day of the ConExpo exhibition. And it was a very, very different time. Reading that article back feels like I've received it from a time traveler from way back when. The day I wrote it, I mean, I'd literally 12 hours earlier, I'd heard that the NBA basketball season had been closed because of the coronavirus outbreak. It was still a few hours before I heard that the ConExpo show was going to be curtailed by a day. So at the time, the real reality, the stark reality of the coronavirus and what it was likely to mean to our personal lives really hadn't dawned. If anything, I was just seeing it as a minor inconvenience that might make me get back home a bit later. It gave no indication that we would be scrabbling around looking for toilet rolls and hand sanitizer, or that the British Prime Minister would be off duty and in hospital for a couple of weeks, or that a US president would suggest that we could kill the virus by ingesting a nice big glass full of bleach. Strange times. Very, very strange times. One thing that I have been pleased to see, literally just before I came on air here, I've been looking at the daytime news, which is something I seem to be spending an awful lot of time doing at the moment. And I've just seen that Italy have started the long road back. There's been a slight relaxing of the lockdown rules over there, which is fantastic news. We've got a lot of friends over in Italy, and when you think about it, well, a couple of things. Italy is kind of ground zero in some ways for the demolition industry. If you think about some of the companies over there, the likes of Trevi Beni, Mantovani Beni, VTN, Italmec, a whole bunch of manufacturers of attachments. The people that really triggered this daily live stream and our realization of what the coronavirus was going to be was our friend Stefano Panseri and obviously the guys at Despe. I do need to catch up with Stefano very, very soon. I've been trying to avoid it, really letting him stay sort of bedded down with his family, staying safe. But now that things are starting to relax, I'd love to get him on the show. So I will drop him a line after today's show and see if we can get him online and actually talk about what the experience has been like in one of the worst hit locations as far as the COVID-19 outbreak has been concerned. That's great positivity coming out of Italy, and I sincerely hope that we see similar from the likes of Spain, France, Germany, and of course the UK. Again, watching the afternoon news, we're still at a loss. I've no idea when we're likely to be back at work in a proper way. It's just a matter of just rolling with the punches at the moment. The one thing that I think this does prove is the fact that demolition and construction, as they always say, can take a kicking and keep on ticking, and that's exactly what we're going to need to do. Also, just before I came on air, and I've literally not even had a chance to read it properly, but the Construction Index, a news portal for the construction industry here in the UK, has just published their latest overview of the UK demolition industry. And I've only really scanned it, but there's certainly the top 10 breakdown by profit and turnover and that kind of thing. Makes for very interesting reading. I'll give you a quick rundown. It goes Keltbray at number 1, Erith number 2, then McGee, John F. Hunt, Brown and Mason, DSM, Scudder, Cantillon, Deconstruct, and R. Collard. And it struck me when I was looking at that just how few pure demolition companies there are on that list. Obviously, Keltbray is a very diverse company these days, as is Erith, as is McGee's. John F. Hunt has obviously got his finger in a lot of pies, including its plant hire operation. DSM with its property portfolio. Scudder's probably bigger in construction than it is over in the main line of demolition. And R. Collard at number 10 there, which is a true pioneer in waste and recycling. It struck me as, is it actually possible to hit those heights, to get to the very top of the demolition tree purely by demolition these days? I'm not sure it is. In fact, I would struggle to think, I'm just trying to do it now, I would struggle to think, or certainly to be able to name, a pure demolition contractor these days. It seems that everybody's got a finger in a lot of pies, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe those companies that are diversified will have the tools and be better equipped to withstand the recession that we all seem to be talking ourselves into. I'd love to get your take on that. Is it possible to be a pure demolition contractor these days? Would you want to be? It's an interesting one. The ironic thing, as far as I'm concerned with that, is that while it seems that the industry itself is diversifying, here at Demolition News, if anything, we're just doubling down. We're just focused almost entirely on the demolition industry. It's stood us in good stead in the past. I'd like to think that we've stood the industry in good stead in the past. And regardless of all that's going on, I've still got enormous faith in the demolition industry. I don't think there's any question that there will be a downturn, but I've been there before. We've been there before. And the industry has always come back, and it's generally come back leaner and fitter and stronger. So we're really doubling down here. We've already been laying plans. There's a really big plan. I wish I could share it with you, but there's just one more phone call that needs to take place for me to be able to say this is going to happen. But there's one big plan. But I think wider than that, we've got a whole bunch of other things that we want to do. We want to produce more video. One of the benefits of doing a Demolition Daily Livestream is the fact that our YouTube figures are on the increase. I think our overall, since we started, whatever it was 7 weeks ago, I think our subscription is up, or our subscriber level is up about 20%. I think our views are up. It's something ridiculous, like 8,000 views a day more than usual. We're getting way more traffic on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been a real boost as far as we're concerned. We've seen a lot of coming and going on that. A lot of people trying to make contact with us. And I guess it's because of our reach and our influence, and I'm doing that in inverted commas because I'm still not entirely comfortable with this term influencer. But that's where we are, I guess. And on Instagram, as I've said, we're already at 113,000 followers, and it's become a real source of feedback and engagement. When I first joined, which is a couple of years ago, as far as I was concerned, it was just a way to put, basically to show off our fancy photographs and our artful videos and that kind of thing. But it's become a real source of engagement and feedback. We have regular conversations on the platform with those around the world. I mean, I do mean literally around the world. On that basis, he probably isn't watching at the moment because chances are he'll be at work. But our friend over at Manpower Demolition in Canada found out this week that or this weekend rather, that his wife is having a little girl. So congratulations on that. Really, really pleased for you. I'm hoping that we can get that sort of engagement on our Demolition Social Club, which comes back on Wednesday this week. I'm literally sat here working out the details of the sign-in process and everything else, but the details will be up on Demolition News at some point today. We're going to use the Zoom platform for the 3rd, and if I've got my way, the final time. The problem with Zoom, I found, is, well, there are several things. I think it's quite a complicated thing. A lot of the time, unless you're already signed up to it, you're required to install a bit of software, which, is a pain in the rear, and it slows the process down. You can't really do these things spontaneously. But I think over and above that, it's just proved to be quite sketchy. You've got to know what you're doing. But there is something coming down the line with Facebook. We've already got whatever it is, 11 or 12,000 followers over on Facebook, and there is a thing called I think it's called Facebook Messenger Rooms. So we can actually set aside a room for a discussion, which is exactly what we're planning to do. So the good thing about that is the fact that the Facebook Messenger Rooms don't require you to have a Facebook account. We can just open it up to anyone, and we're planning to do a few things with that, and I will reveal those now as I've got a bit of time. First and foremost is that's where we're going to host a social club, and I think I'm pretty committed now. Regardless what happens with the industry when we go back to work, it will be worthwhile, I think, getting together maybe once a fortnight, once every 2 weeks, and just getting together from wherever you are in the world, just to have a chat and let's see how we're all getting on, making sure we're all okay, to share a bit of experience, share past problems and that kind of thing. That's part of the plan. So that would be one use. I think the other use that we've got in mind, or there's two actually. One of those is just to have a central point where, and I don't even need to be involved in this, but we'll have almost like a forum. So we'll have a room where you guys and ladies can chit chat and fire things backwards and forwards whenever you feel like doing that. But I've also got another one in mind, and unfortunately it's come at the wrong time. The Facebook Messenger Rooms haven't actually launched, or at least I haven't got it yet. I think a few people in America have got it, maybe in Canada as well. But when we get it over here, one of the things that I've got in mind for it is to do watch parties. So obviously we're launching our own video programs on a fairly regular basis. So when we do that, we'll all be able to have a chat about it. We're going to watch it together for the first time. Give us your feedback. We'd love to hear that. But I'm also going to plan it to take that even further. As I say, the timing is a bit off, but there's still probably half a series of the TV show Scrap Kings left to play out. If anybody is watching that, and I sincerely hope you are, even if it's only because you're in that particular episode, to get together maybe for half an hour after the show has ended, talk about what we saw, what we liked, what we didn't like, whether we agree that it portrays demolition in the right way or the wrong way, but basically just to have a watch party together and basically to chew the fat. Excuse me, we've had a couple of comments come in. I'm going to do the easy one first. Paul Boats, good afternoon, Paul. Thanks for your comment, and thanks. I think you're our most consistent viewer. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's good for us because we get to see that you're watching, but I'm guessing that means that you're not currently at work. We'd love to hear what you're up to. And we've had another one from probably our second most regular viewer, which is Scott Laird, who is over in the States. Thank you for your faith in our amazing industry. I've got to be honest with you, Scott, I don't have a great deal of choice in that matter. As I've said on numerous occasions in the past, I am a bit of a one-trick pony, and it's not that much of a trick in the first place. What I know is how to write about demolition and construction. So if that went away, I'm not entirely sure what I would do. One of the points that you've made there, here in the US, I think our industry will be among the leaders in our comeback. I totally agree. Past experience has proven time and time again that construction and by default demolition is the barometer of the economy. It's usually the first to go into recession, and it's almost always the first to come out. So my hope, certainly based on some of the figures that we were sharing with our friend Neil Edwards on Thursday last week, and then again on Friday, there's a lot of pent up demand there. Certainly just here in the UK, there's the best part of 20 odd billion pounds worth of construction work. There'll be a sizable proportion of that will require demolition over the next 6 months, 12 months, or possibly beyond. So yes, I think the economists are talking us into a recession. I think the fact that we can't actually go out and actually grab hold of this work and make a start is a frustration at the moment. And I think that's serving to fuel some of our concerns about the economy. But I think as soon as the industry is turned loose, that recession we will start to eat away at that, because that's what this industry does. I used the term earlier. It will take a kick and it will keep on ticking, and that's exactly what this industry does. It possesses a lot of values and characteristics, but I think the key one is resilience. We always come back stronger, and I think in this instance we will need to. And I'd like to think, and I'm doing this completely on the fly here, but thinking out loud and based on what Scott's just said there, leading the various nations out of recession, I think is part of it. But I think it's also an opportunity for us to lead in a wider sense. I spent a lot of time over the weekend listening to the Dirt Talk podcast. If you haven't heard it, I really would recommend it. It is American. It's not. There's very little in there. I think there's one episode that's on demolition, but it's on mining, construction, extractive industries, and that kind of thing. But one of the things that came out of that was this need for the industry to show leadership in order to encourage the future generations. And one of the things that came out of the episodes that I was listening to is what this industry really stands for. There are some very clever people in this sector, don't get me wrong, but academic smartness isn't necessarily a prerequisite. There's a lot of people that bypass college and university here in the States and elsewhere, and have gone on to make a huge name for themselves, have made a huge business for themselves, and have made a small fortune as well. And I think that our chance now is to convey some of that to the younger generation. So rather than just popping up on the TV every once in a while because we've blown something up, we can actually be there as the leaders. We are forging the path to a recovery. We have the ability, and there's no question that's exactly what we'll be required to do. Our job now, I think, is to shout about it. If I can help anyone in that respect, I'd be more than happy to do so. As I've mentioned earlier, we've got an absolutely enormous platform. If you haven't heard this story before, I'll share it with you very, very quickly. Back in the day, when I first became a journalist, I worked on a construction magazine called Contract Journal. And at its height, I'm talking about sort of 1987, 1988, we were a team of around about 32 people all told. And at that time, we were literally head to head against Construction News. They were our big rival. But I think we also pushed each other to ever greater heights. And at that time, we were very proud of the fact that we had 44,000 readers per week. A team of 30 plus people were providing a magazine to 44,000 people a week. I can hit 44,000 people via Instagram in about 2 seconds flat. We here on Demolition News, if you're actually talking about demolitionnews.com purely, our readership is somewhere around about 62,000. That's it fluctuates, but subscriber wise, that's what we've got. But if you factor in Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn, and even more so on Instagram and even TikTok now, we can be hitting upwards of 250,000 people. Just literally with the press of a button. That's the difference. So if you're, and this is not a sales pitch, that's not really what I'm here for, but if you're looking to spread the word to encourage that next generation, we're here to help. We've got a lot of reach, we've got a lot of penetration, we speak to the right people, we broadcast to the right people, we broadcast on all the right platforms. So yeah, if you have got a story to share about things that you've done that the younger generation might buy into. I think we've now realised that trying to convince the younger generation that operating an excavator is just like operating a PlayStation, that's a premise that just doesn't seem to work. It might work at exhibitions. You might get people stopping and taking note and maybe having a bit of a play on a simulator, but it's not getting people through the door. And one of the things that we are going to face, a very stark reality once we go back to work, is the fact that we didn't address the skill shortage before, when we were ticking over at £4 billion worth of new business each month. If we're going back to a post-recession where it's 8 million or 9 billion per month, we have got one hell of a skill shortage. So the sooner we can address that and get that younger generation on board, the better. So share us your stories. Let us know what you're doing to encourage that younger generation. We'd love to shout that from the rooftops. I must admit, I've been quite inspired it sounds such a cliche these days, but I have been quite inspired by the Dirt Talk podcast. Obviously, we've been podcasting for way longer than they have, but their shows are very, very in depth. You've got a show that lasts about an hour and really gets under the skin of both the company they're talking to and the industry they're talking about. And we've got so many stories in this industry, so many positive stories. Unfortunately, we tend to make the news when things go wrong, blowdowns that don't quite go according to plan, accidents and incidents. Those are so far the minority, and I think it's about time that we started globally and cooperatively to share the good news, share the positive. And as I say, if we can play any small part in that, then we certainly will. Just one final thing is it is the Demolition Social Club on Wednesday. So if you are around on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock UK time, we'd love to see you there. As soon as I end this broadcast, I'll get the details up on demolitionnews.com. I referred back to an article that I wrote while I was in Las Vegas. Oh, excuse me, very itchy nose. I will post a link to that if you watch this later on YouTube, and this will be up on Demolition News and on Instagram as well later on. So thanks for joining us. Good numbers, despite the fact I was making this up as I was going along. I'm hoping that our guests that blew us out will see the error of their ways and join us at some point later in the week. Until then, everyone, thanks for your time today. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, your family and your colleagues. Stay safe, and I'll see you again tomorrow, same place, same time, 3 o'clock UK time on Facebook, and then after that, everywhere else. Have a great day, and thanks for being here.